is Access Tech Live, live from Vienna, Austria, for the Zero Project Conference with Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo, the latest in tech and accessibility. Follow us now and get involved at Access Tech Live.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Access Tech Live. We're back with you for the second of our special episodes, live here from the Zero Project Conference in Vienna, Austria. I'm Stephen Scott, beside me, as he is every week, but again, by my side, actually here.
I know, we can touch each other. It's so strange.
Touch each other, it's nice, it's kind of also weird. Marc Aflalo's here, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful, Stephen. You know, day 2 here at the Zero Project Conference in Vienna. Beautiful day. It's obviously dark at night here at 6 p.m. Really great show lined up for people. We've got some really cool guests. One's already standing by, but we're going to get to some really cool people, some cool hands-on tech as well. Sean Priest had a chance to check out a really cool headset, so we're gonna talk to that company and explain that process as well, which is really, really neat.
Yeah, we've been testing out some interesting tech that can help navigate you around, almost like a guide dog might. So we're going to talk about this. We teased it yesterday on the show, but you'll get the chance to find out all about a company that was huge at CES this year, Marc. This was a company that made it very big at CES, very big on the tech press as well. Mainstream tech taking an interest in this, using clickbait headlines like, it's the next robot guide dog, which I love.
But you don't know it's not true? I mean, come on.
It's not. It's not a guide dog. Come on, it's not a guide dog.
Stephen, remind people what the Zero Project Conference is all about.
Before I get in trouble, as I was saying.
Well, no, I just want, people who might be tuning in at a regular time today on Thursday, as opposed to our special yesterday, which you can find on YouTube if you want to. Remind people why we're here.
And MI Plus. But yeah. We're here, of course, at this fantastic event run by the Zero Project. The conference is an annual event. And what it's all about is really just giving an opportunity to shine a light on the countries and the projects that are doing great things to support and enable disabled people. And one of the great things about that is it gives out awards to people who are disabled, but also not disabled. It's really a proper inclusion event. This is a place that you come to, an event that I've come to for the first time and seen so many disabled people, which you don't see that often at disability conferences, not enough. And that is what Zero Project is about. It's not just about talking about disability, it's about rewarding products and projects that are going on and people who are doing great things.
And it's happening here at the UN building in Vienna, Austria, which is really cool. Stephen, 2 hour left at TV right is Jakob Rosen, who is the owner of Sparrow Access, a company based in Estonia. Jakob, tell us about Sparrow Access. What do you do and where do you come from?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me here. So Sparrow Access is an accessibility consultancy. We do consulting, training, and testing on accessibility, whether it would be in digital or built environment spaces. And we try to cover, despite me being blind, we try to cover all disabilities with our community and our people. And the reason it came to be, I founded it a few years ago, and the reason it came to be is mostly my impatience, because I have been telling various companies and letting them know about different accessibility issues and barriers they've been having, but my impatience ran out when they failed to do much, because the knowledge of how to actually fix accessibility issues isn't very widely known in Estonia, or it's not easily accessible for them. So that's where Sparrow Access comes in. We try to help them with experts' knowledge by testing and letting them know how technically you could fix some code on the website, for example, or a mobile app. So that's where we kind of stand. We try to be the one-stop shop of accessibility by involving people with disabilities in the testing process, by using partners and folks from abroad if there's a need. So trying to make it very simple for somebody who wants to make their content or things accessible to reach out to us, and we help to get the rest.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And it's a really important thing because, of course, there's lots of companies, lots of developers, lots of products out there that are being made, apps as well. Trying to make sure these are developed and made accessible is key. Talk to us a little bit about the state of accessibility, the state of disability in Estonia. How are disabled people faring in your country?
Well, our population is not very large, right? We have 1.3 million in Estonia. which is some cities are larger in world. But that means our disability community is smaller, but at the same time agile, right? We can do things faster in the whole country. We can talk to maybe politicians faster in this sense. We are able to hopefully let them know for the need faster. At the same time, since the community isn't that big, some projects maybe do not reach us. We might not be attractive for some global companies to come to our market. But in general, I would say we are in quite a good place in the European Union. For the past few years, we have had some good new laws set up, right? We have the European Accessibility Act, which comes and lures down to the private sector, banking services, TV services, e-commerce, etc. They need to become accessible by 2025. And so the law is now behind us as well. We also have another act here which demands for public sector to be accessible. And in Estonia, we have those. And in addition, we have our Estonian digital kind of e-government framework in the background, which means that we all kind of have a digital citizenship, which means you can basically, as an Estonian, authenticate yourself with your phone or with a physical ID card online, sign documents, sign into different services as yourself, and it's secure and it's for in the eyes of law equal to a physical signature on a paper, for example. And that means that I, as a blind person, can read the document, sign it, and verify other people's signatures in an accessible way, for example. So that's one maybe unique place where we are with our accessibility.
That's very cool. You're taking part in a couple of interesting conversations here at the Zero Project. You may have already taken part in some of them. Can you tell us about some of those conversations? Are they conversations amongst groups of people, or are they just like you keynote type speeches?
Well, there are two kinds of conversations. One of those take place like in the sessions on the stage. There are constantly fantastic conversations here in the halls taking place. Tomorrow morning, I am chairing a panel with people from the social ministries of Azerbaijan and Ukraine, and we're going to actually continue on the same topic, the government, and how to bring the social system and social benefits into that. So Azerbaijan and Ukraine have both made it possible. Azerbaijan has made it very simple to apply for social benefits, and Ukraine actually has a great mobile app to manage your social services. So that's what has been what's coming tomorrow. What we also yesterday had a great fireside chat. I was happy to be part of. With a nice lady from Singapore, and we talked about how to make libraries accessible. Libraries are fantastic places, right? Because they're much more than just shelves of books, and you go in and you get a book and you go home and read it. Today, there are you go there. There are so many things you can do. There are maker spaces. There are different labs. There are different cultural events you can take part of, and the folks in Singapore have made their first national library, or part of it, now fully accessible. So if you go to the Zero Project conference website and go check it out, because this is truly fantastic what they've done.
Would these conversations you're having with Ukraine and Azerbaijan, do you think these would have happened without the Zero Project conference? Would it have allowed those conversations to happen? Were you in those talks already?
No, definitely not. Well, I can't be that certain.
but they're possible for sure because of Zero Project. Right?
Of course, they will. Who knows, right? But Zero Project has brought us definitely together, and it's sometimes hard to maybe see out of your own bubble when you live in your own country. You have enough issues to deal with. Maybe it's hard to keep up with what all the people, all the other governments, all the other countries are doing, right? So it's great that we have Zero Project. It's great that Zero Project has this bird's eye view, we may, over all those solutions, and able to thread them together. So we are able to, Estonia, Azerbaijan, Ukraine tomorrow meet and share our knowledge, because Estonian folks within our government who run the digital government part, they definitely talk about those topics with other countries, but social systems probably aren't at the top of their list. They probably will deal with different issues, but what interests me, what interests other people with disabilities, is the way of working out the issues with the social systems, right? Because in Estonia, we still need to fill in papers or long forms, and my disability status, it expires every 5 years. Actually, in 1 year, congratulations, I am cited on the paper again. So
Great when that happens, isn't it?
Yeah, wonderful.
it's lovely,
Didn't
right?
realize it was expiration day.
It's so easy. But it's great to joke about this, but for a lot of people, it's very hard to face the long bureaucracy, the going through doctors, getting through the assessments again, etc., etc. And we have the digital tools. We are automating everything. We have AI, whatnot, right? Why can't we just fix the social system, right? So let's hope that this tomorrow we're going to fix it, basically.
Yeah, how can people follow you or see what you're doing if they want to get in touch?
The easiest is probably to find me. It sounds really posh and corporate. To find me on LinkedIn, but this has been really going on here for the past days. So JAKOBROSIN. I'm also on Mastodon. So if you look up my name, probably in Mastodon, which is the new Twitter, then you could find me there. I guess Mastodon is where I'm me. LinkedIn, where is all the important posh talk.
Understood. Jakob Boesen, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Stephen, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, a woman who is looking to modernize the emergency service system. Really cool. As we continue live here from Vienna, Austria, for the Zero Project Conference in Vienna. We'll be right back on Access Tech Live.
There's more Access Tech Live to come. Get involved and have your say at Access Tech Live on social media. We'll be right back. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. The show will return in less than a minute. Access Tech Live will be back in 30 seconds. Access Tech Live, the latest in tech and accessibility. From the Zero Project Conference in Vienna, back to Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo.
Welcome back to Access Tech Live, live from the Zero Project Conference in Vienna. Now, you're going to hear lots of noise around us because there's a big event happening just behind us in the main hall at the moment, and that is a massive awards ceremony, which really is the culmination of this conference. It's what it's all about. It's about rewarding people for doing great things. Now, we're going to be talking to lots of different organizations and companies today. And yesterday, of course, we talked to lots of great people as well who are in receipt of some of those awards.
Did I win anything?
No, and I didn't either.
Wow, I guess that's why we're out here versus the event.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Stephen, a couple of days ago when I first landed in Vienna, there was a really cool event. Again, everything here is invite only, right? So people aren't worried about the public being at events, so they can really relax, sit back, and enjoy themselves, and also meet and network with new people. And one of these events was like a speed dating of tech almost, where a select few companies, or 21 companies, had an opportunity to do a really short pitch on stage in front of major companies, major investors, and hopefully not only secure funding, but secure exposure and whatever they might need for their company. And it was a really, really cool event. And one of the companies that took the stage there was a company called Access SOS. And we had an opportunity just earlier today, and that's why you'll see it will be a bit daytime, to meet their founder, Gabriella Wong. So here's that conversation from earlier today. Welcome to Access Tech Live. Thank you for joining us.
Such an honor to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
I was super impressed yesterday when you guys gave the presentation on stage. Can you, for our audience who weren't there, obviously, tell us, number one, what was it like to be in front of people like that and have that opportunity? And tell us about the company.
Oh, it was such a privilege to be in front of people that really understood what we do. But also to educate them on our work. A lot of people in the audience had no idea that emergency access in the United States is so fragmented and prioritizes English, prioritizes voice, and we were there to change that perspective.
Now, you told a personal story. Do you mind reiterating that here with our audience?
Yeah. So the reason why Access SOS was started was because both my parents are deaf, and sign language is my very first language. And I saw growing up how my dad was left out of a lot of everyday things. If things weren't closed captioned, he would just sit there watching their mouths move and have no idea what was being said. My mom, same thing with her. But it wasn't until I saw that this lack of access meant life or death. My father had a gallbladder rupture, and he was not able to call emergency services because it's voice only. He texted me to call 911 for him, but I wasn't near my phone at that time. And that's when I realized that this lack of access really meant that his life was not prioritized. And Access SOS is here to really fix that problem. Luckily, my dad is okay, but the situation is not.
Yeah, it seems so odd to me that kind of service is not available. You would think, I just take it for granted that something like that would be in place. That must affect so many people. How widespread is this problem?
So in the United States, where Access SOS's our work is focused on, about 50% of 911 call centers are voice only. Voice only. And even if text to 911 works and is available, voice is still prioritized. When you send a text message to 911, they don't know your location. They have this marketing campaign, call if you can, text if you can't, which shows the deaf community and people who don't use their voice that voice is prioritized. And so we're really here to fix that advocacy, that awareness piece that's lacking in that messaging.
And you mentioned something really important there, because of course you talk about the deaf community, which of course on its own is bad enough that they're being left out here, but also people who cannot use their voice. What happens then? What happens in a situation like that? Are they just expected to call family like yourself? That doesn't seem right, does it?
Absolutely. Oftentimes they rely on a caretaker or a family member who has that access, voice access, to make that emergency contact for them. Or in my dad's case, which I haven't shared, my dad had to drive himself to the ER.
Oh, wow.
His head was hunched over the steering wheel. He knew that he didn't have that critical lifeline to 911. He was going to use video relay services, which is available in the United States for the deaf community to use, but he knew that was going to be a really slow and delayed process, and he was already weak. So he knew he needed to go to the emergency room. I wasn't answering. My mom wasn't answering her texts. So what he had to do, he had to drive himself. And data isn't being collected, but I really fear that people who don't have that critical lifeline to emergency services are dying. And those stories aren't being published because maybe someone finds them unconscious or passed away. Those stories aren't being told. And that critical lifeline and access is so important right now.
So tell us about your journey in terms of starting this company. Where did you start, and where are you today?
Yeah, so where we started at Access SOS was we knew we wanted to be a nonprofit because this is a gap in the market. People don't see this as a business. So where we started with Access SOS is what are the policy shifts or changes we could make at the United States level? What could we do to influence text to 911 to become nationwide? And when text to 911 is nationwide, how do we prioritize this non-voice modality? So when we started our work, we found out that policy was so slow. Even if a blanket policy was passed, for example, tomorrow, to upgrade these old legacy technologies that are voice only would take about 10 years, because even if a policy was passed, you still need the funding. You still need each 911 call center that doesn't have it to implement it from a landline, like a physical landline copper system, into a digital cloud-based infrastructure. And so Access SOS, we were like, we still focus on policy, but we saw that there was a gap in technology. And so we have a free mobile app that translates text into a voice call to emergency services until policy and infrastructure can catch up.
Feels like a Band-Aid though, doesn't it?
Absolutely is a Band-Aid,
Yeah.
but it's a Band-Aid that has been proven to save lives right now.
Which is the most important thing. You mentioned video relay services, so how did they compare? You mentioned that your dad felt that would be slow. So explain that to us, how that worked for somebody who would use something like that.
Yeah, so for the deaf community, what would happen if they have an emergency and use video relay services is they would either pull it up on a screen, and it would be in an office or their kitchen, for example, or they would pull it up on their phone. So in my dad's case, for example, let's say he's driving and there's a car accident. So he would pull up video relay services on his phone. First thing he needs is really good data connection because it's a video conversation.
Like a FaceTime call.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The second thing he would need is an available interpreter. The third thing he would need is accurate location, being able to convey that. Because when you use video relay service on your phone, the address that they receive isn't your current address where your phone
Whatever
is.
your carrier has on file.
Exactly. It's what your carrier has on file. And so when the deaf community has used relay service, even if they're connected to an interpreter, even if they're able to convey their emergency, emergency resources go to the registered address on file. So it's a delay first, and it's inaccurate location.
It's an archaic system. I mean, the fact that this is still the case today it boggles my mind in the world of voice over IP. So if they didn't have those three elements, which you need all three of, you wouldn't be able to successfully use that service. That's absolutely insane. So, you come to an event like this, what does that mean for you coming to an event like Zero Project? Are you able to network with people? What is the goal of coming here?
Oh my gosh, my goal is to really spread the word about this equal access to emergency services. The second thing is to communicate our mission and really to connect with like-minded people that understand and resonate with our story, but also understand that it takes resources and really smart, clever ways to partner with government, with foundations to make this organization and our work sustainable and scalable.
With all the technology that exists out there and that's constantly evolving, does it surprise you that this has never come up in someone's radar? People inventing things like FaceTime, inventing video chats, yet basic necessity like calling for emergency services isn't something they would even, oh, maybe we should fix this.
Absolutely. I see that all the time. And it's because you don't realize that access to emergency services is broken until it happens to you or someone you love.
Or is it because the technology available, like FaceTime, for example, is seen as the solution? So you just immediately skip over the part where you say, oh yeah, texting. It's like the story of during the space race. The Americans spent millions trying to work out how to create a pen they could write upside down. And then the opposition, the Russians, decided to just use a pencil. It's like there's a simple way to do things.
Yes.
And it kind of sometimes gets overlooked in the quest for, using the latest and greatest new technology.
Yes, absolutely. We see that constantly where it's not a solution. It's a very, very simple solution, but one that's been overlooked because other AI solutions, other solutions have been prioritized. And we're really just trying to bridge that gap in access.
If people want to get involved and learn more about you, where can they go?
Oh, accesssos.io, that is our website. Please visit us. We're also on social media. Our handle is 911 Access.
Stephen, another great nonprofit company here at Zero Project in Vienna. I'm going to spell that website out again because it's actually a little bit of a strange spelling. Access, SOS, ACCESSOS.io. And that was Gabriella Wong. Listen, we've got to get the domain names.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break. Our next guest is standing by. He's the CEO of the Accessibility Standards of Canada. What does that mean? We'll find out together on Access Tech Live in just a moment.
There's more Access Tech Live to come. Get involved and have your say at Access Tech Live on social media. We'll be right back. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. The show will return in less than a minute. Access Tech Live will be back in 30 seconds. Access Tech Live, the latest in tech and accessibility. From the Zero Project Conference in Vienna, back to Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo.
And we're back on Access Tech Live from the Zero Project Conference in Vienna. Now, Marc, it's always interesting to me that we travel all this way and then we meet someone from Canada.
Is that the point, though? We have to schedule meetings in Vienna just to meet people.
That's how we meet, right?
No, that's a good
come
point.
To Vienna to meet.
If we meet here, then we must meet other Canadians here. And our next guest, who is sitting right next to me right now, is Philip Rizkala, who is the CEO. Although he joked off the air, you want to get the CEO, he's inside the room there. The Accessibility Standards of Canada. Welcome to Access Tech Live. You got to tell me what your organization does. Obviously, you're a part of the Canadian government, but you've been around for 4 years. I know that. But what's your mission at the end of the day here?
Yeah, so you're right. We've been around for about 4.5 years. And as the name name implies, Accessibility Standards Canada, we develop standards to remove barriers to accessibility.
That's pretty straightforward.
Sounds good.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks,
yeah.
Marc. That's great.
That applause you might be hearing in the background is not for you on that question,
Oh,
but it maybe should be. So what are some of the achievements? What are you aiming to achieve with this?
Yeah, so, before I tell you what we're aiming to achieve, a lot of people don't know what a standard is. So I'd like to maybe give you very, very quickly what a
Like
standard
context.
is. So a standard is like a recipe. If you're baking a cake, it's nice to have a recipe that tells you need these ingredients in this order, you cook it for this long, you come out with a product.
Yeah.
So when we develop standards, we're basically telling people, this is what you need to do if you're building a building, or if you're hosting an advertisement, or if you're communicating with someone, so that it's done in a manner that everybody can understand and that it reaches the masses of Canadians. So that's what we do. We develop those standards or those recipes. So you wanted to know what some of our achievements were?
Yep.
I'd definitely jump into that. So like you said, we've been around for 4.5 years. And as a standards development organization, we have two primary functions. One of them is we develop the standards, and two, we fund research. We give out grants and contributions to organizations linked to the community of persons with disabilities. And they do research, and that research helps inform the development of our standards. It helps inform government policy. It also helps set guidelines and informs the community of persons with disabilities. With regards to what we've done, primarily over the last 4.5 years, we have embarked on a number of standards. We put committees together and we started developing standards. And to date, we've developed, I'm gonna just take a stab in the air, but we've developed about 5 standards so far that have gone out. We have 5 that we're about to start embarking on, 5 new committees that we're about to move forward. And I can get into some details on what some of these standards are, but it's
No, we're actually very curious about them, and also what makes up some of these committees, because Stephen talks about how important representation is. I'm going to assume that there are obviously a lot of people with disabilities on these different committees.
Absolutely. That is key to the way we develop our standards. So because we're developing standards for the community of persons with disabilities, it was important for us to change the way standards are developed within our organization. Now, standards have been around for 100 years, over 100 years. And the way standards have been developed, so that you get kind of a perspective of why we're doing it the way we're doing it, they're usually committees that are made up, if you're lucky, maybe 1 or 2% persons with disabilities represented on these committees. The essence of the standards are based on a principle of minimum acceptable. So usually it's based on a 75 to 80% population base. So you're taking that core base of population and you're developing your standards based on their needs. So what ends up happening is that 20%, of that 25% outside of that core are usually the marginalized groups, community of persons with disabilities and others that fall outside of that group. So you can imagine what's happened over the last 100 years. We've developed standards, but we've excluded this group that we should be developing standards for. Yeah. So the concept that we've taken is we develop the standards, but we develop it for that group on the outside. And what does that mean? That means that everybody gets included in the development of our standards. So it's a different mindset, but what we consider our standards to be our equity-based standards. Equity being that it includes everybody. So that's when we develop our standards. And one of the ways we do that is we make sure that our committees are made up of a lot of members from the community of persons with disabilities. If we're developing a standard for somebody who's in a wheelchair, it would be nice to have somebody on our committees in a wheelchair. Yeah. Not that they represent everybody in wheelchairs, but they come at it with a different perspective. Yeah. And it's not just that we're bringing somebody in that may be in a wheelchair or somebody that may be visually impaired. They're experts in their fields. So we may get a lawyer who's in a wheelchair that would represent us in a certain way. We may get an engineer that's visually impaired that will have expertise from the engineering background, but also lived experience. So on average, most of our committees are upwards of 50 to 58, 60% persons with disabilities on those committees, which is unheard of in the standards world. Yes. But in addition to that, we also have gender equality, we have balance, which again is unheard of when it comes to standard development. So we're very, very unique when it comes to where we develop our standards.
That is. Yeah, I love that. And I love the fact that you talk about the representation, but in particular qualified representation. Yes. Which is actually really important. We don't just want to be there because we feel like we should be there. There should be a reason. What you talk about is interesting. For some people on the ground, it might feel a little bit woolly in the sense that, they'd like to maybe understand how these standards you're talking about affect them in real life. So how does the work you do impact on a disabled Canadian?
Yeah, so it will have an impact on the community of persons with disabilities. And what we do is we're just one piece of the puzzle. The Accessible Canada Act says we want to have a barrier-free Canada by 2040. And there's lots of players that will get us to that 2040 goal. And we're one of those players. So our goal is to create the documents that will hopefully turn into regulations or legislation at some point, so that when the governments come back and say, okay, you know what, you have to now build your buildings this way, or you have to communicate to the public this way, or create your forms this way if you go to a bank, they need to know how to do that. So we're creating that how-to of they give them that knowledge base. So what are we going to do? So we develop the standards. Other levels of government, other organizations will either voluntarily use these standards or they'll be adopted through legislation, and they'll use those standards. But we go further than just developing the standards. We work with provincial governments. We work with industry groups. We work with communities of persons with disabilities, and we encourage them to start using our standards. We try to promote the standards well ahead of ever going to a government and saying, these are the standards that should go into legislation. Let's wait 10 years to see what happens. We're starting to put them into force. We're trying them out. We're seeing whether they work. We want to be comfortable with these standards, and we're promoting them everywhere we go with the standards. So it sounds a little, I think you used the term woolly, or it sounds a little woolly, but look,
it kind of has to, right?
It has to. Look, we've got 100 years of mindset change that we have to tackle. And so to come to somebody and say, I know you've been building these buildings for 100 years and they haven't collapsed, but you know what? You forgot about a segment of the population. And now we're coming to you. You can still build this building, but you got to do it slightly differently now because you got to include everybody. So you need to change that mindset. And that's what we're doing right now.
I know you've got questions to ask, but I just want to ask this one. I just want to ask this because I find this interesting. So obviously you're talking about this from a government point of view, but is the work you're doing politically affiliated, or is it, I guess what I'm asking is, could a change of government affect what is being done?
Yeah, so this is the beauty of our department. So we are what's in government terms called a departmental corporation. It doesn't mean much, but to us it means a lot. We are autonomous from whatever government's in place. We actually report to a board of directors. Our board of directors is made up of 80% persons with disabilities. They give us our marching orders. We listen to them. They are also appointed through government, but they're independent of government. So we can't have a new party come in and say, accessibility is off the table. It doesn't work that way. So the board of directors says, you know what, this year we want you to focus heavily on artificial intelligence and how that impacts the community of persons with disabilities. That's what we work on. And the government could be saying something else on the other end, but if this is what our board of directors wants, because they are the voice of the people. We are developing standards for the community, listening to the community, and that's how we develop our standards.
So I was going to ask you how to tie this back into tech, but you just kind of did that for me. You gave me the little introduction there. Tell us a little bit about AI and what kind of standards and the challenge there of trying to instill standards in that kind of.
So I'm happy you actually raised AI, and I guess I broached the subject just a few seconds ago. AI is one of the standards we're about to embark on right now. So we have just started the committee. They've met once or twice already. We have international representation on the committee. We have some of the world's top experts when it comes to artificial intelligence. And what that committee is going to be looking at is creating a standard in the first year. Well, actually, let me go back a little bit. For those of you that don't know how AI is actually impacting people with disabilities, what happens usually is AI is algorithms. Those algorithms will basically say, we get all this information and we're going to spit out going to spit out a result. And this is how you will deal with this issue based on this result. And outliers in that algorithm usually get weeded out, and we end up working with that 80% again. So what's happening is those outliers again are the persons with disabilities. Let's use a very, very simple example. When you go for facial recognition in an airport, the software is there to recognize people, able-bodied people that may not have facial distortion or some other facial anomaly or visual impairment. So you're automatically excluding that person from actually being read and screened to go through that artificial intelligence. But the information that's been gathered says the person is going to look like this and the person is going to have these features, but that may not necessarily be the case with all people. So you're automatically excluding certain segments of that population.
Well, a perfect example of that is every time I go through an airport, I wear sunglasses all the time. I always have to take them off, which is a nightmare for me because I'm so light sensitive.
Yeah.
So that can be a real problem for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And so those are rules that have come in place that don't necessarily aid everyone. So what we're looking at with the artificial intelligence is saying, okay, you know what, let's start looking at the outliers. Let's see if that algorithm can be tweaked so we're not automatically throwing out the pieces that are going to impact a segment of society. And so that's what the AI technical committee is going to be doing. It will be world class. Nobody's doing it anywhere in the world right now.
Philip, I wish we had another hour to talk to you, but we don't. And we're trying to negotiate like 4 hours, but it's not going to happen. If people want to find out more, it's accessible.canada.ca, correct?
That's correct.
Awesome. And if they want to follow you, I guess they can head on over there and read all about you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you, gentlemen.
We're going to have you back on the show. I think we're going to talk about this a little bit longer, Stephen.
Yeah,
I got a list of questions that are going down quite long. Thank you so much for
It's my
taking the
pleasure,
time to join
guys.
us.
I'd love to join you again in the future.
Stephen, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, a very cool company. You teased it. You spoke to them yesterday. Well, we're going to find out how they think that they can, get rid of that guide dog.
How dare you?
I know. Stick around. This is Access Tech Live. We'll be right back.
There's more Access Tech Live to come. Get involved and have your say at Access Tech Live on social media. We'll be right back. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. The show will return in less than a minute. Access Tech Live will be back in 30 seconds. Now, back to Access Tech Live, the latest in tech and accessibility. From the Zero Project Conference in Vienna, back to Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo.
We're back on Access Tech live from the Zero Project Conference in Vienna. We're having so much fun and we're getting to talk tech.
Never enough time.
There's never enough time, but we're getting to talk tech with a company who are promising. Well, let's find out what they're promising. Teasing going on with this one.
You've been talking about this for a couple of days.
I'm excited.
With us right now, our next guest is I promise not to mess up names. Cornell Armani, right? No, Amare.
Oh, you almost
There
got
we
it
go,
right. You
okay.
almost got it right. A bit too Italian, but you almost got it back.
To Italian.
Italian,
I forgot that. The company's Dot Lumen, right?
Company's
So,
Dot Lumen.
Tell us about Dot Lumen, where it all started,
Sure.
and where we are today.
Definitely. So first of all, I was born in a family of people with disabilities. I'm the only person without a disability in my family. And that, of course, coming from Eastern Europe, where we're from, that was particularly tough growing up in such a family. But it also showed me how much technology can help and also how little technology exists for people with disabilities. So after I had a career in the automotive field where I worked in autonomous driving and everything in that direction, I realized that we can actually use the latest in what robotics and artificial intelligence and autonomous driving can do, but to help people in a bit of a different way. And that's where the Dot Lumen story begins. So roughly 3 years ago, we founded this company with the purpose of helping people, starting with the following problem. You have close to 300 million visually impaired in the world, but if you look at what solutions are out there for them, for the mobility purposes, you have the same two solutions and they're thousands of years old. And that is the guide dog and the white cane. Now, the guide dog, very nice, works very, very well, but it has a couple of drawbacks. It can reach up to even more than $60,000 to train one. And to take care of a guide dog is simply too much responsibility for a blind individual. It's a lifestyle which you decide to have, which is not for everyone. And because of that, in the entire world, to more than 100 million people who could benefit from the guide dog, you only have 28,000 guide dogs. A great solution, but not a scalable solution. This is where we come in. do. As I mentioned, we come from autonomous driving and everything, so we took that technology and we scaled it down into a headset, which you can comfortably wear on your head, which does everything that the guide dog does, but without the drawbacks that make the guide dog a non-scalable solution. So what do the lumen glasses, as we call them, or the dot lumen glasses do?
Yeah, describe what you're holding right now.
Sure. So basically, what I have is a headset. It goes around your forehead, so it doesn't sit on your eyes. Even if we call them glasses, they sit basically on top of your eyes, on your forehead, and on the back like a headband, which goes across. We have a system of 6 cameras which understand the world. They understand where the ground is, any obstacle above or below it. But we also do some amazing things with AI so that we can actually determine what is a sidewalk, what is a road, what is the lake. Because just because the ground is flat, it doesn't mean you can walk on it. A lake perfectly flat, you can't walk on it.
Hold it a little bit higher just for the camera.
Sure. So we use AI in order to determine all of that, and then here comes the interesting thing: how we guide people with it. Because we do exactly what a guide dog does, with one important and small difference. The guide dog pulls your hand. So you tell your guide dog what to do and either navigate you generally or to go to a particular object or destination. And the guide dog does this by pulling your hand. That's what the guide dog does. What we do with the dot lumen glasses, we actually pull your head. This is how we joke about it. So basically, you have a haptic feedback interface on your forehead, and you just feel how something is holding your forehead, and it's pulling you in the direction you have to go, avoiding you from obstacles, keeping you on the sidewalk, stopping you at crossings, helping you cross crossings, and very, very soon, even public transport integration. So you'll be able to ask for the glasses to take you like the middle of a city, and they will know how to take you to the bus, how to get you in the bus, how to take you out, and how to navigate you up to there. So actually, we're already surpassing the performance of a guide dog. And all of that in something which you can comfortably wear, something which is at least 10 times less expensive than the guide dog, and something that only requires you to charge once a day. Finally, after 5,000 years since the guide dog first came into paintings and everything, there is technology which can replicate what the guide dog does and even more.
Okay, so I think you've laid it out really well, because I think one of the things that has happened as a result of this being shown off at CES and the Consumer Electronics Show earlier this year was that there's a lot of headlines suggesting this could replace a guide dog. What you're saying is there aren't enough guide dogs to go around for people who want them, and not everyone wants a guide dog. And look, I'm one of those people. I don't really want a guide dog. I'm quite happy having Sticky McStick or Cane McCane, because it's Scottish, obviously. It has to have an appropriate Scottish name. But I'm happy with that, and that's okay. But I am interested in how this technology can help. Now, interestingly, guide dogs are often provided to blind people at zero cost or very low cost in most countries. How would this work in that regard? Because if people are having to buy this, it becomes a financial cost.
That is true. So we have 2 models in this, and now I'm mostly talking about Europe, where we're from. In Europe, we're working with basically any kind of assistive technology reimbursement program. So already we know multiple countries in which this will be for free. So in Europe, it will be for free in as many countries as possible, and we already know which ones are those. And in the other countries, it will be heavily subsidized. Again, the guide dog, you do get funding for it in some places. Not all over the world you get funding, but in some places you get. But with the price of a guide dog, we get roughly 10 of these. So roughly 10 people can benefit from the guide dog benefits. And it's true, we do not want to replace a guide dog. If you have a guide dog, then you already have the solution. But very few people want to have that lifestyle. We want to provide the same benefits as the guide dog to all the other, at this point, 39 million blind individuals and roughly 70 million visually impaired individuals who could benefit from one, but do not want to take care of one and do not want to have that huge training cost.
Does it have to be a choice, though? Could it be an option, additional to guide dog or white cane?
So the system detects the guide dog, so you can actually walk with both the system and the guide dog.
Oh, okay.
The system also detects the white cane, and we actually want people to still be using their white cane. For example, the glasses determine automatically where the white cane is and ignores it as an obstacle and everything. And we want people to actually train while using the white cane, so you can still feel, when the system pulls you away from an obstacle, you will not know that there's an obstacle there because we don't tell you there are obstacles. The guide dog doesn't tell you there's an obstacle either. We want you to understand with your white cane, okay, there's an obstacle. This is why the system actually helped me pass it by. So you can actually, the way we thought of this is you can continuously use your white cane together with the device. Just as some people still use the white cane combined with a guide dog, you can still do that with the system.
Can I hold it? Can I
Of course,
feel
of
the actual
course.
weight of this? Because, I really want to give a better description of this because it sits on your forehead. It doesn't
Yeah.
sit on your eyes. It's got a pretty plastic shell that goes, and this is close to production model, you said, that goes
It's still
around.
not a production model.
Okay.
So the production model will still be lighter and smaller than this
So
one.
it sits on your head like a hat does, like a cap
Yeah,
does.
yeah.
And there's a heavier portion on the back, which I'm assuming has a battery in it
Yep.
and all the components in it. And on the front, there's it's almost like a visor that sticks out over your forehead with all the sensors and the cameras and everything that goes on board. I got to ask the question. I mean, this isn't the most attractive thing to be wearing. It's definitely not as cute as a guide dog, but I understand the functionality. Is that a limitation based on just the size of components and batteries? And are we going to get to the point where, like we say with Vision Pro and other, things like that, where this could just be a pair of glasses on your face like you're wearing now?
We're gonna get to that point. Right now, the limitation is basically technology. We're at the absolute limit of what technology can do. In terms of processing power, the closest thing to what we do are self-driving cars. And if you think of a Tesla has just 30% more battery, more computing power than what we have. But a car is a huge thing, and we had to condense all of that into something which you can wear. Regarding the design, this design has won the most important industrial design in the world award, which is the Red Dot Luminary Award. Yeah. So we actually won that. And just to give you a hint of some of our competitors in the last phase, Apple was one of our competitors, by the way, and we won on top of that. Also, Spaceship Unity from Virgin Galactic was a competitor, and we won on top of that. Now, with devices such as Apple Vision Pro becoming so mainstream, it's a much better environment to have head-worn wearables. They're becoming standard. So something like this is not something which would attract attention anymore as it becomes more and more common. We have over 300 blind individuals which have tested it. We do clinical investigations with a bunch of people, and they're wearing it every day. They don't necessarily see the attention which they receive or anything. So it's it's getting more and more mainstream and approved as a technology.
When you see Vision Pro coming out from Apple, do you look at that and think, okay, so Generation 0, it's big, it's bulky, everyone's talking about the weight of it, but then you think about Generation 3, 4, 5, does what you're building become an app?
For some particular cases, so first of all, when we're talking about our patented haptic feedback and everything, you cannot have that in the Vision Pro. So that's the first thing which you cannot do. You cannot have that in the Vision Pro. When you're talking about visual feedback for people with low vision, with reminders of vision in some cases, we do have some patents over there, and we do plan a version of the device which actually gives you augmented reality feedback, but it will not cover your eyes. It will just be an overlay on some transparent glass. You will still be able to see the environment with no obstructions. That's something which we are working on now, and that will have the same navigation functionality, but for people with low vision. Getting back to the Vision Pro, it could potentially one day be so. However, the Vision Pro is not designed to work outdoors. Let's see the second or the third generation. I will be. Yeah. Considering this is a third generation product, Vision Pro will not be on a yearly life cycle updates. So probably the next generation of Vision Pro will be in 3 years. So by that time, we're going to make it much, much smaller.
And it's not specialized, right? This is specialized. Specific. There's a specific single purpose. Which is really cool.
This is what fascinates me because
wrap up.
What you're doing here is building something which I think Apple must be looking at, or other companies would be looking at, and saying, how can we build this and make this useful to everybody, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. What a cool product. Congratulations on all the success so far. I cannot wait to see you again and see what the next generations of this look like.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us, Stephen. We're going to take a quick break, come back, and we got a couple minutes to wrap things up here in Vienna. Stick around. It's Access Tech Live.
There's more Access Tech Live to come. Get involved and have your say at Access Tech Live on social media. We'll be right back. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. Access Tech Live will return in less than 2 minutes. Access Tech Live is in a commercial break. The show will return in less than a minute. Access Tech Live will be back in 30 seconds. Now, back to Access Tech Live, the latest in tech and accessibility. From the Zero Project Conference in Vienna, back to Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo.
And we are wrapping up here at Zero Project Conference live in Vienna. Access Tech Live, of course. Marc, it's been a great couple of days.
There's an award ceremony going on right behind us, even. They're applauding just as you came back. I think it was perfect timing. Did you win an award this year? I think the best coverage of Zero Conference project
Best
ever.
host in this chair.
Congratulations on that.
Thank
That's
you.
an
That was
incredible
great.
accomplishment.
That was a great one.
What an incredible couple days. It's amazing the things they're doing here, and it's so cool to be on this global scale and actually see this and actually see you in person.
Yeah,
Can we
exactly.
do this more often? Can you come to Canada, please?
I think I should. Yeah,
You
I think I
move
should.
there. I don't
Yeah,
know.
you can come to Scotland. I mean, stopping you.
Yeah, I've been there before. No thanks.
Okay. Fine.
A lot of people behind the scenes working to make this stuff happen. Andy Frank, thank you so much. Grace Caulfield, thank you so much. Sean Priest is somewhere here. I don't know if he's left
Sleeping, I think, probably.
Has he fallen asleep behind that?
Yeah.
Really cool stuff. Obviously, coverage continues on the Double Tap Daily podcast. You can check that out on all podcast platforms. Don't forget, you can rewatch our show yesterday. If you weren't here yesterday, we did a show as well. Some people may not realize that because it was not our normal schedule. You can find that, of course, on YouTube and AMI Plus as well. An incredible couple days. We will hopefully be back next year in some way, shape, or form.
Yep.
If they invite us back, I don't know. So, I mean, no one's tried to kick us out yet. So it's an accomplishment there in itself. Tonight, I think we're going to celebrate with some schnitzel.
Yes, absolutely. I think, I have to say, honestly, this has been a great event and a great opportunity to speak to people from all around the world. And like I said earlier, countries that you just don't hear from.
I know. It's really
And
cool.
actually, in some ways, doing much better than the countries you would think are doing well.
Yeah,
When
totally.
it comes to disability.
And
I
new
find that
friends,
incredible.
Stephen. New friends.
New friends.
Thank you at home for tuning in. If you want to, of course, get in touch at Access Tech Live on all our social media. We will catch you next week on our regular time, Thursday at noon Eastern, here on AMI TV.
Thanks for tuning in to Access Tech Live. Follow us online on all social media at Access Tech Live. Email us feedback@accesstechlive.com. Hosted by Stephen Scott in Glasgow and Marc Aflalo in Montreal. Written by Stephen Scott and Marc Aflalo. Producer, Marc Aflalo. Director, Dan Panamondo. Technical Director, Caitlin Robinson. Audio, Jordan Mulgrave. Live graphics and playback, Kingsley Juco. Graphics Coordinator, Eliza Rocco. Integrated Described Video Specialist, M. Williams. Supervising Producer, Michelle Dudas. Produced in collaboration with Aflalo Communications, Inc. and Double Tap Productions. Copyright 2024, Accessible Media, Inc.
An AMI original production.